Oh, we have some joiners ready for our chapter 4. For those of us that are joining us, we're going to be starting, we've been starting Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business, the 1990s Dolly Parton memoir that she wrote. Every day I've been wearing a new wig, and I only got a couple wigs, and I have to do something with them every day differently. So here we did a top knot, because why not? Or a top, whatever you ladies or dudes call these. I put it up, because we've had our hair down all week, probably for a couple weeks for some of us. So let's put it on up. So we've read chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. Chapter 3 was the one we just read. Now I have to think about what that one was all about. We learned the story of how Dolly Parton got the Coat of Many Colors song and where that came from. It was from when her mother sewed a bunch of scraps of fabric together to make a coat, and she was very proud about it and wore it to school. Even though other kids made fun of her, she loved it. We then learned a little bit about how her and her siblings were all into getting in trouble, like making chocolate when they shouldn't have been. But today, we're going to learn a whole new part of Dolly Parton's life in chapter 4. If you're new to this, you don't even have to be watching the video. You could just prop me up somewhere, pretend you're propping up Dolly Parton high on a pedestal, because these are her words, and you can just listen. Go about your house cleaning duties. Go about whatever. But we're going to go ahead and... Oh, Jenny, I hope you're doing well over there. Have a good day. Jenny from a really great boutique here on Kauai. She just stopped by to say hi. If you have a chance, you should check out Work It Out Kauai. She's got some really great product. Great clothing and great athletic leisure wear and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in. Feel free to come, go, whatever. We're going to keep this up. So here we go. From the time to time into our little world between the mountains, from time to time, into our little world between the mountains would come heaven on wheels. Green's Rolling Store, it was called. Most folks called it simply the Peddler. It was a rusty old school bus, although there was a little of the original vehicle showing it to give it away. But to us, it might as well have been Disneyland. We could hear it coming for miles. The road to our house was deeply rutted, and the old bus would creak back and forth, banging the pots and the pans on its side in the kind of a "here comes candy, ain't it dandy, wish I had a nickel handy" rhythm. Once the peddler had pulled into our yard, the caked-on mud would crack, the doors would open, and a kid could step inside. Everything in the world was inside that school bus, or at least everything worth knowing or caring about. Baby Ruths and needles and thread, Butterfingers and bathtub stoppers, row upon row of store-bought perfection. Our favorite thing was a sugar daddy because it lasted so long. That's really funny. I'm sure there's some innuendos that Dolly Parton plays off in this. Anyways, okay, you could suck on it and pull it into a point and make the sweetness stay with you until bedtime, even beyond. My mother will attest to this, having found many a kid with one glued to his or her hair with no choice but to cut it out with scissors. For those of us that are joining right now, we are reading chapter 4 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. We've been reading a chapter every other day at the same time, so feel free to sit back, relax, have a cocktail, because these days you can have a cocktail whenever. Or smoke a joint, whatever makes you happy at this point. Okay, the peddler would take eggs or even the live chickens in trade if you had no money. I can remember the chickens tied by their feet to the outside of the old bus, looking quizzical, but seeming to accept their part in the overall scheme of things. We were not above stealing on our own chickens to trade to the peddler for something sweet in our mouths, even if it meant a board across our butts. Like the chickens, we had learned to accept life's trade-offs. I guess I always had a streak of devilment in me. I think it was more due to curiosity than anything else. The problem was that curiosity included finding out just how far I could go without getting my butt beat. My grandmother on Daddy's side was an invalid. Grandma Parton, who was always called Bessie, had some kind of inner equilibrium problem that caused even the simplest motions to make her sick. She had somehow acquired this condition during her last childbirth. She always lay in bed and couldn't stand for people to even get near her because even their movement would make her queasy. That's how I feel right now. Actually, I'm living my best life. I don't have to be around anybody. I know there's a few of you out there, right? Okay. She and Grandpa Parton, who was called Poppy by all of us, lived up in the holler with her Uncle Leonard, with my Uncle Leonard. He is married now with a house full of kids and grandkids, but at the time he was a bachelor and took Grandma Bessie and Papa into his house to care for them. I loved him for that. I loved my grandparents and they loved me. I was the only one of the kids that would spend much time up there. Most of them thought Grandma was just a griping old lady. I was the only one that would sit on her bed without it bothering her. I guess I just knew how to do it. There were a lot of unpleasant things that Grandma had to have done for her. I guess that's another reason the other kids stayed shy of her. I probably would have too, except for that curiosity and in my inability to let sleeping grandmas lie. I just couldn't stand to see her just lying there. It seemed like somebody just had to mess with her to remind her she was alive. I took that job on. She had to use a bedpan, and she would sometimes ask me to empty it. I would take it to the creek and clean it all out with a dutiful grandchild. But then I would hang around the creek and play with it while a white porcelain boat. Oh, she'd play with it like a white porcelain boat. I would lose myself in this play, and usually by the time I got back, Grandma Bessie was in a hurry to have her bedpan back. Well, that creek, being a mountain stream, was ice cold, and I would hand Grandma the bedpan literally frosted over. She would slide it under her, and then take in a gasp that you would swear would suck the bedroom curtains in with it. I always pretended I didn't know what was going on, but I guess I knew enough to tell you about it now, don't I? We are in Chapter 4 of My Life and Other Unfinished Business by Dolly Parton, written in the mid-90s. One of the other chores was to brush Grandma's false teeth. She was also so afraid I was going to break them. Teeth were hard to come by in those parts. Grandma had never been to the dentist in her life. The story was that the funeral home kept all of the teeth no longer needed by their customers, and people who needed them would go down and try on sets until they found one that fit. I don't know if that was true, but I do know Grandma was very protective of her teeth. That sounds like a job that we could, potentially open up here soon. Small businesses might go away, but maybe we'll be starting to use dentures at funeral homes. That's a new business. We could say we learned it from Dolly Parton. Chapter 4. Okay. I would be careful with them as I took them to the kitchen and scrubbed them good with toothpaste. But then my inner devil, Dolly, would take over. I'd put those false teeth over my teeth and try to get them into my mouth. Of course, they wouldn't fit all the way and stuck out like some kind of werewolf fangs. I would dance around Grandma's bed like a monster, making growling sounds. She would try to shield her eyes from my bouncy movement as she would shout, "Lord God, youngin', you're gonna break my teeth." She'd reach out and swipe at me, which just egged me on because I knew she couldn't reach me. I guess that was the closest I had ever seen her to getting up and walking. My visits with her weren't all devilment. I would clean out from under her fingernails and toenails and brush her hair because I knew she had a lot of pride. She loved me to do that. I'd massage her feet and do whatever I could to make her feel better. She used to reward me by letting me play in her big jar of Pond's cold cream. She always had Poppy save all the pretty flour sacks to make me school dresses out of. Sometimes she'd order things for me out of the Sears Roebuck catalog. She loved to sit up in her bed and look at the catalog, and she was always ordering something. I loved it when she'd send away for something for me, and I'd spend every day waiting by the mailbox until it came. I still love to shop out of catalogs. I guess I inherited that from my Grandma Bessie. Those things she bought for me were among the very few store-bought things I ever had as a child. I can remember getting a whispering of drawing names at school. At Christmas time, they put all the names in the box, and everybody would draw one to see who he or she was supposed to give a gift to. Daddy always told us not to draw names, but what was I supposed to do? Everybody else in school drew one. It was a traumatic thing, though. Even if I could explain Even if I could explain away not being able to buy someone a gift, or worse yet, give the person a really cheap or homemade gift, there was always the possibility that somebody would give me something really nice. This made me feel terrible, guilty, poor, and terrible. The worst thing about poverty is not the actual living of it, but the shame of it. Still, Christmas was a warm and wonderful time for us. Snow has a way of making even a humble shack look magical and inviting. Christmas will always be certain images to me. The glow of the fire through the windows, the crackle of a pine knot burning through the windows, the crackle, oh, I already read that. The crackle of the pine knot burning. Even the smoke that seemed to reach out and pull you by the nose into the house. One of my favorite things was to bring some of the snow in to make snow cream. Oh, hold on. We have somebody joining us for Chapter 4 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. It's Willow. Give us a smile. Well, you know, we got something. Still, Christmas was a wonderful...
I'm upset seeing that wig.
Christmas will always be certain images... Oh, wait, we read that. Mama would send the other older kids out with a pan and a big spoon to gather up the sparkly white stuff. The younger ones always wanted to take part in this, but it was generally known that their snow gathering would be too haphazard. Snow cream made from yellow snow is not quite the same. The official snow collectors would be very careful as to where the future treat came from. Where would what Willow's wanting to read to you all right now too?
She's not letting me take her.
Oh, she just wants to read. It's okay. We have someone joining us.
Come yell at me when you need me.
I need you.
Just the other room.
The first week. Hold on. Chapter 4 is on pause.
Y'all heard it. He needed to be.
She'll make it through some chapters eventually. Okay. Those things. Oh wait. Okay. Sometimes she blah 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 blah. Okay. Skipped. We're back. Okay. We're back. Mama would send the older kids. Okay, we learned about that. Snow cream made from yellow snow is not the same. The official snow collectors would be very careful as to where this future treat came from. The pure snow could be skimmed from the powdery buildup on top of the woodpile or raked off the tin roof or the little spring house. The pristine crystals were brought inside with much ballyhoo and fanfare, and the mixing process would begin. I always loved to be the one to stir the snow cream with the big wooden spoon as the delicious ingredients were added. In fact, there are some who claim I used to hide the spoon to make sure nobody else got that job. I will neither confirm nor deny that until I've had a chance to talk to my lawyer. Hopefully she's talked to her lawyer because, again, this book was written in the 90s, and I'm sure they've got something worked out. You never know. It is Dolly. The sugar and vanilla and milk would be stirred in, and there it was, snow cream, the closest thing we usually had to ice cream, but still better in its own way. Sometimes there would be a hot pie or a cobbler to spoon into it, but the snow cream was wonderful all by itself. I remember going with Daddy to get the Christmas tree. We used to fight over who'd get to carry the axe as we followed Daddy over the hill and dale, looking for just the right tree. There were a lot of cedar trees that would be suitable, but it seems they only grew in certain places. It would have been much easier for us if there had been only one or two. Everybody had a favorite and would lobby Daddy to consider the finer points of that particular tree. In the end, it was always Daddy who finally said, "This one!" I would try to help drag the tree back to the house, but was usually brushed aside by the bigger boys. Dolly Parton had a lot of siblings. Once the tree was inside, we would sometimes find surprises like a bird's nest or the intricate mud houses built on some of the twigs by last summer's dirt daubers. Those dirt houses didn't seem very Christmassy and would be broken away after being studied, but the bird's nest could stay. Maybe somebody would make some little eggs out of a foil or dough, and it would become part of the decoration. All the decorations were handmade. When it came time to string the popcorn, Mama would give us one of her precious needles with the plea, "Y'all please keep up with my needle, and don't poke nobody's eyes out." with the popcorn that we got eaten and stepped on. Making those strings long enough to go around the tree could occupy a kid for quite some time. So if any of you are looking for things to do with your kids while you're in self-isolation, quarantine, lockdown, whatever we want to call it these days, maybe make some popcorn garlands, string them around your house. Have Christmas now. Who cares? We don't even know what day of the week it is. Okay. My favorites were the gingerbread men Mama would make to go on the tree. We all knew they were delicious, but somehow there was some kind of unspoken truce that allowed them to hang in peace, at least until Christmas Day, when the tree would more likely be decorated with gingerbread heads. Christmas Eve, there was always singing. Mama did most of it, but we all loved to sing along. She would always tell the Christmas story, and then Daddy would take us to the barn to see the animals kneel. The legend was that at the stroke of midnight, farm animals all over the world would keel over in honor of the newborn Jesus. Somehow, we would always fall asleep before this happened. I suspect it was, at least in part, a way to get us to be still long enough to get sleepy. But it was a fine tradition anyway. Luckily, there was something to get us to go to sleep. Otherwise, our excitement might have kept us up forever. Dawn would break, morning, and we kids would bolt out of bed like a covey of quail, flushed by a double-barreled wake-up call. The race was on to grab your stockings and see what was in it. This was the one day, the 1 hour of the year when we experienced plenty. A Christmas stocking is a marvelous thing. You leave an empty, limp sock hanging there at night and then wake up to find it fat with promise, nearly bursting at the seams with rare and precious goodies. Here was a lesson in hope, faith, and fulfillment you could actually hold in your hands. It would have been easy to simply dump the contents onto the hearth and instantly wallow in the bounty of it all. But it was much more fun to feel. This is an orange. This is a peppermint stick. I got chocolate drops, went the excited squeals as stockings fondling went on. Oh, wait, hold on. I gotta do that again. This is a peppermint stick. I got chocolate drops. This is an orange. That was better excited squeals as the stocking fondling went on. Okay, somehow Mama and Daddy, again we're reading about Dolly Parton's life, so her Mama and Daddy, always managed for each of us to get one store-bought gift. Regardless of what it was a thing of wonder to be revered, looking at with slow eyes, felt with tender hands, and relished for its newness. Best of all was that it's really mine. That feeling could carry you around on a cloud for days, or until it was replaced by that it's really broken feeling. The boys' gifts usually included fireworks, and they'd be outside announcing that fact to the world as soon as the match was found. For today, tin cans would become space capsules, finger-formed dams would be blown, and many a German matchbox would no longer threaten Allied troops. There was always somebody who protested that fireworks should not be a part of Christmas. Perhaps they were meant for New Year's, but nobody really expected them to last that long. In a way, though, they were the perfect salute to Christmas. They made a joyful noise. They spoke with a loud, sure voice. They were here for one soul-stirring burst of excitement, and then they were gone, leaving only the glorious anticipation for next year. We girls usually got a little pink plastic doll with its own white cloth diaper held in place by a tiny gold safety pin. That may sound really cheap, but I'm sure it was. But from the ordinary things we saw in the holler... Oh, wait. I just skipped the whole sentence. That may sound really cheap, and I'm sure it was. But for us, just the fact that it was plastic made it different from the ordinary things we saw in the holler. There was no way this could have been homemade, unless your home happened to be in a sweatshop in Taiwan. Those little plastic dolls instantly became the focus of whatever motherly instincts the Parton girls had. Of course, we all had one, and they basically all looked alike. If you looked closely enough, and of course we did, you could see little imperfections in the plastic that identified each doll. We mothers would get to know our dolls intimately, Inevitably, somebody would get lost or eaten by a cow or thrown down a well by an ill-tempered brother. Sometimes there would be a baby snatching. A fight would usually follow, consisting more of accusations and name-calling than anything else. "That's my doll," the rightful mother would cry. "See, it's got 2 little extra globs of plastic on its left ear." On a good day, though, each mother would care for her own plastic treasure, and all would be well with the world. We would scavenge to find things to serve as a crib and bedcloths. The more industrious ones would even fashion clothes for the doll. I always liked mine just the way it arrived Christmas morning, in this special paper diaper with the shiny gold pin. In this special cloth diaper with the shiny gold pin. Mama and Daddy had their own special way of sharing Christmas, at a time when they could afford nothing else. Mama had given Daddy a box of chocolates-covered cherries and a package of handkerchiefs. Every Christmas since then, she has given him those 2 same gifts. It has very special symbolism for them and helps them to appreciate much more fully the things they have now. At the time, all of that was lost on us kids. We were primarily interested in Daddy's chocolate cherries and whether or not he would share them. He always did. My most memorable Christmas, the one for which I personally received the least. When Mama and Daddy married, he was only 17, and she was 15. Isn't that a song? Not by her, but she's just 15, he's just 17. I don't know, I'm just making that up to go with the story. Daddy had never been able to give Mama a wedding ring. One Christmas, he gathered us all together and explained to those of us that were old enough to understand that there wouldn't be the usual store-bought gifts we had come to expect. This year, all of the money had gone to buy Mama a ring. There was instead one gift for the person who could find the ring where Daddy had hidden it. This set off a frenzy of searching. Every place that could accommodate a ring was looked into. Of course, all of this was accompanied by wild guesses as to what the one gift might be, accompanying proclamations of what each searcher would do with the gift once he or she had won it. Finally, the ring was found. By this time, we had electricity, so that now a string of garish bubble lights added to our tree decorations and our unending fascination. Someone found the ring placed around one of those bubbling glass tubes and rushed it to Mama. Everybody shared Daddy's pride as she slipped it onto her finger, and a chorus of genuine "ooh, ah," and "oh." That one gift, as it turned up, was a box of chocolates that we could all share. That is Daddy's way. Those chocolates were so sweet they could make your teeth hurt, sorry, I don't know where that yawn came from. That is Daddy's way. Those chocolates were so sweet they could make your teeth hurt. And so are the memories of that Christmas. I never think about Christmas and candy without remembering how Denver would instantly take whatever candy he had and lick every piece. This was to ensure that no one else ate it. He apparently didn't mind his own spit, but to the rest of us it might as well have been cyanide. It seemed like there was always one person, usually Stella, who would hoard a piece of candy or 2 until everybody else had crunched theirs into oblivion. Then the held-back candy would be slowly and painfully licked in front of the candyless, green-eyed horde with a gleeful kind of one-upmanship that is peculiar and bring on some form of justice from Mama or Daddy, always involving some kind of speech about the true spirit of Christmas. For those of us that are just joining us, we are reading the 90's biography by Dolly Parton called My Life and Other Unfinished Business. We're in chapter 4. Every other day we've been reading a chapter. And every other day I've got some kind of a new wig on. Today I had to updo one because we're limited on wigs at the moment.
Still reading?
Still reading. Everything okay in the house? And then there's Bryce and the baby. Everything okay?
All good.
Okay. Denver needed no special occasion to harass and needle me. Denver was is one of her brothers. Dolly Parton came from a large family, just trying to catch everybody up. Denver needed no special occasion to harass and needle me. He was always beating the tar out of me, and I couldn't do much about it because he was older and stronger than I was. This was the first evidence of a sort of male chauvinism mountain boys don't necessarily grow out of, although they do tend to subdue it somewhat after 2 or 3 divorces. In response to this, I had begun a sort of early Appalachian feminist guerrilla movement. My tactics were simple: to strike by surprise and then run like hell. Here comes Willow. Here comes Willow.
You stand there.
Say hey. Are you here to read the book about Dolly Parton? Here, you can sit on my lap. Let's see if she'll make it. Okay. Okay. Okay, my tactics were simple: to strike by surprise and then run like hell. I was good at holding a grudge. Sometimes I would wait until hours or even days after Denver had beat me up and had forgotten all about it. Then I would strike with the swiftness and severity of a red-tailed hawk. She's very excited about this book. She's very excited, can't you tell? Oh.
She wants to read.
She wants to read to you all. We're working on it. We're going to skip potty training and go straight to reading. That's where we're at. Okay, we got to go back a couple pages. You missed like 10.
You take her?
Probably. You do your thing first. We're fine. Okay. People are enjoyed by Willow. One time... Oh. I could... That was her temper. Did you see that little shaking of her face? She just wants you to see the cover, and then we want to read this page. Okay. 1 second. Isn't she cute? We have to take the baby out. And then we'll get back to reading about Dolly Parton. But in this moment, I'm going to have a little sip of water. Okay, back to it. We skipped a paragraph or two. Oh, goodness. Oh, goodness. We'll get through chapter 4, I promise everybody. I got a dancer and a book reader in the back. I think people are ready for us to get back to the book reading.
Come on, little darling.
Okay. Dad will be back in just a little bit. She's trying to get into the book.
She won't let me get it.
Okay. We were just at the point where Dolly Parton has a grudge against her brother. Okay. So she would wait until hours or even days after her brother Denver had beaten her up, and then he'd forget about it. And then I would strike with the swiftness and severity of a red-tailed hawk. I could sometimes get in a really good lick that would stun him long enough to haul my ass away. One time, Daddy had just replaced the screen on the back door, and Mama had taken this as a cue to spray the house with her flies. She didn't want new flies or kids coming in during this, so she had locked the screen door. I was in my silently seething grudge mood with Denver. I saw an opportunity to give him a good, hard shot from across the back of the couch and then beat a quick retreat, using the couch as an extra obstacle in my favor. I seized the moment. I caught him with a hard right. That's my right, even though unto you looks left. I caught him with a hard right. That felt really good. It must have hurt him because it was hard enough to hurt my own hand. That was a good hurt, and I relished it as I ran for the back door. I hit the door unexpecting it to fly open, but it was locked. The new screen Daddy had put it was stretched as tight as a banjo head, and it knocked me backwards, landing me on my butt in the kitchen. I cried, hoping Denver would take pity on me, but there was none in him. Talk about beating a dead horse. He gave me a beating twice as bad as the one that had inspired my sneak attack. I took the blows, but I still had that sting in my right hand that told me I struck at least one blow for womanhood. Womanhood was a difficult thing to get a grip on in those hills unless you were a man. My sisters and I used to cling desperately to anything halfway feminine. For a long time, I was a tomboy, but once I got a better idea of what that meant to be a woman, I wanted it with everything in me. We used to love when our aunts would come to visit. They had been out of the mountains, even to other states, and they knew so much. We thought they were incredibly sophisticated and worldly. Best of all, they had purses filled with lipstick and powder and eyeliner and all kinds of things we had no access to. This was the real ammunition in the battle of the sexes. They would sometimes let us explore those bags of ammo, and we would do so with all the awe you would expect from art lovers touring a museum. Even if we had been able to get those things from ourselves, Daddy would not have let us use them. He did not believe girls should wear makeup, at least not his girls. He thought it would make us look trashy and get us into trouble. Maybe his trying to keep cosmetics and things from us had something to do with the intensity with which we wanted them, especially Stella and I. Stella's her sister. Maybe that has something to do with the fact that as soon as we got away from home, we practically made a career out of makeup and the other trappings of what we consider to be femininity. To paraphrase the Bible, bring up a child in the way you think he should go, and when he is old, he will make you pay for it the rest of your life. Many a bellman struggling under the weight of my makeup bags has had to pay as well. Still, our aim was not to consciously rebel against Daddy. We wanted those things because we felt they were a vital part of our personalities. We could see the pictures of the models in the newspapers that lined the walls of our house, and the occasional glimpses we would get at a magazine. We wanted to look like them. They didn't look at all like they had to work in their fields. They didn't look like they had to take a spit bath in the dishpan. They didn't look as if men and boys could just put their hands on them any time they felt like it, and with any degree of roughness they chose. The way they looked, if a man wanted to touch them, he'd better be damn nice to them. Most of all, they looked like a man would want to, very much. I had very carefully avoided letting the mountain philosophy of hard work become a part of the fabric of my being. I had, however, retained some sort of what I had learned about make and do. Once I had seen the actual materials in the Purse Museum, I could figure out how to improvise. Lipstick was the most fascinating thing to me because it was red and got the most attention. Also, it went on the mouth, which I figured was about the sexiest part of a woman that was all right to show in public. For this, I used Merthiolate. Merthiolate. Never heard of that. Merthiolate. Oh, for those that are joining, we have someone new. We are in Chapter 4 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. Mama always kept a supply of it around to put on cuts so that it would look stupid and burn like 40 hells. If our lips were dry and chapped, and mine often were, it could sting like fire when you put it on. It wasn't exactly red, a little too orangey, and was truly capable of making us look trashy and bearing out Daddy's worst nightmares. If we were lucky, we would have mercurochrome. Mercury chrome. It's interesting. The techniques of lipstick and stuff that we're reading about today. Mercury chrome. It was a truer red and didn't burn so much. The one thing they both had in common... Thank you. I decided to take all the wigs because we're very limited and do something new to them every day that I read. I'm trying to look like Dolly puts her hair up for the weekend, because she's had her hair down all week. Anyways, I'm digressing. Okay. The one thing they both had in common was their ability to stain the lips so that the color would last for several days. This meant that Daddy was bound to notice. "Where did you get the lipstick?" he would demand through gritted teeth. "It's not lipstick, Daddy, it's my natural coloring," was always the plea delivered in spurts between frustrated wipes with a coarse washcloth. The first part of this was, of course, true, and could, in a kid's mind, create a gateway of honesty through which the rest of the statement could slip without a hint of remorse, usually connected to a lie like some kind of illegitimate Siamese twin. The kind of spit-in-your-eye boldness that gives a kid's words only tends to make the adult more determined to exact penance, or at least scrub off the vile colors of a rebellion, even if it means taking some of the lips off with it. The phrase, "I'll wipe that smile off your face," was never taken so literally. Next came face powder, or at least my substitute for it, flour. I didn't have anything to even approximate base makeup, so I figured the flour would help hide my freckles. I hated my freckles even before my brothers figured that out and used to torment me unmercifully. My powder always helped to hide the dirt. I wanted to be feminine, but apparently not at the price of having to actually break down and wash my face. That would have seemed like an act of treason against all of kiddom. Mama didn't relish the idea of our wearing makeup either, but I think it had more to do with the fact that it showed we were growing up and would be leaving the nest. That could have been what secretly motivated Daddy as well. But he was not the kind of man to let such feelings show. Mama would make fun of me of my putting flour on my face. Why are you gonna do what you get hot? What you gonna do when you get hot and sweaty? Break out in biscuits? She would say with that, "You're being silly, but you're mine and I love you" kind of look in her face. Maybe it's like that. No, that's kind of creepy. After considerable experimentation, maybe like this. Or like this. Same look, it's different sides. Changes everything. Okay. After considerable experimentation, I found that the most reasonable facsimile I could find for eye makeup was to burn kitchen matches, lick the blackened ends, and apply the black paste to my eyebrows and lashes. My impatience to become a woman sometimes caused me to get a burned tongue. It took several matches to do each eye, and I have never been one who found it easy to wait for anything. Finally, I would use the juice of pokeberries for a rouge and sometimes to color my lips. It stained almost as badly as merthiolate, and I went through several days of looking like a clown, and being told that in no uncertain terms by my brothers. Before I learned the sublets of pokeberry rouge, when the pokeberries weren't in season, the pain I endured for the sake of my beauty was of shorter duration, but more intense. I would simply pinch the devil out of my cheeks until they took on a red blush. This could give a more satisfactory look than a tricky pokeberries. But the effect wore off and my rouge of pain had to be reapplied on a regular basis. The quest for beauty has always been a struggle for me. We went from talking about Christmas to beauty in the mountains. This is a very unique chapter, and we're only in chapter 4. It's a long one, so I apologize if you're all like, when is he ever going to stop talking? Jeez Louise. We have at least 20 more pages. Just kidding, just a few more. Okay. The quest for beauty has always been a struggle for me. I can't remember anybody ever saying that I was the one of the more beautiful children they had ever seen. I was a pale, skinny little thing with corn teeth and hair that was fine and close to my head. And then there were those hated freckles. You could not have said that I was as cute as a speckled pup without expecting the speckled pup to piss on your leg out of resentment. My sisters all had beautiful hair and would get home permanents. That's another word for perm. Permanence, perm, same thing. Okay, their hair would turn out wonderfully coiffed in that sort of white trash pose for a picture with your prom date kind of way. But mine would just get frizzy. Leaving the solution on longer was not the solution either. No matter what I tried, it only made things worse. It was bad enough that I had doubts about my looks without the fear being reinforced. Of course, I could always depend on my brothers to tell me how bad I looked. But in my mind, I could write that off as meanness. Sometimes he even wondered if I was indeed my parents' child, since my sisters all looked so good. However, since it would require some hanky-panky on my mother's part for it to be otherwise, I have no real doubts. Even if she had the inclination, she never had the opportunity. The old adage about keeping your wife at home, barefoot and pregnant, was never carried out more consciously, although I suppose my mother did wear shoes on most occasions. Those old seeds of doubt about my looks had grown into quite a bumper crop for many a makeup artist, wig maker, and plastic surgeon. Even if I was sure of my parentage, I still felt like I didn't belong. I was just different, and I knew it. A person might think that a kid growing up and that many others would never be lonely. But I often was. Some kids make up imaginary friends, and I had my own version of that. I called them my angels. I would talk to my angels all the time. I felt safer because they were with me. They understood why I had to sing, why I had such dreams, why I want to climb aboard a butterfly and wing my way about out of the holler and into a world that I knew lay behind what I could see. Hold on, I gotta take a drink of water. But we are reading Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business.
That was coffee. I need water now.
Where were we? They could be starting the accurate. One night years later, she sat up in her bed and said to Daddy, "Let's get your clothes on. Lee, get your clothes on. Denver's had a wreck at the Cove Bridge." By this time, Daddy knew not to take Mama's 6 cents lightly, so he drove her to the bridge. There was Denver's wrecked car with the wheels still spinning. Denver had broken his neck and would not have survived if he had not been found early. In that remote area, he could easily have lain there all night. I don't know what gave Mama the power she had, unless it was that her care for her children was so intense that it could reach beyond the boundaries of time and distance. I think it was care for me that made Mama so upset at what she knew about the baby she was carrying. She told Daddy that my unborn baby Larry would not live. He had been made my baby, and she knew it would be harder on me than anyone else. Mama went into labor on July 4th, and Larry was born on the 5th. The angels that had spared Mama called little Larry to be with them. When Daddy came home and told us, I was inconsolable. I remember saying, "Your baby is dead." I remember when they had also said, "Your Aunt Martha's dead." And if you remember from chapter 1, Aunt Martha was her favorite relative, and she passed away. I guess I was angry at God. Why was my baby dead? Why did everything that was mine have to die? I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. For the first time in my life, I couldn't sing. I wouldn't leave Larry's grave. I would take a lantern up on the hill and sit there most of the night talking to him and crying. Finally, I came to some understanding. We had a picture of little Larry in his coffin. My family has kept it, and we have always considered him a part of the family. I remember looking at that picture and knowing that the body I was looking at was not my little brother. I remember an old song called, "That's Not the Grandpa I Know." That is about the same thing. I came to think of his spirit as something apart from his body, something not bound to that grave that I kept mourning over, but set free to live a perfect existence in heaven. Finally, I got the feeling that Larry wanted me to shut up and let him get some sleep. "Get off my grave and get some sleep yourself," I thought he was telling me. I took his advice. In my childlike way, I came to understand that death is only frightening to those of us left behind. I made peace with that idea, and with God, and I went on with my life. I sang again, now with a voice made richer for having known loss. I have often been asked if the story of Applejack is true. Essentially it is. I took some poetic license with the song, which is my right, but the basic facts are there. There was this old man who lived all alone in what could only be called a shack by the side of the road. He had a name, but folks called him Sawdust because he kept sawdust on the floor of his shack. I don't know if he chose to be alone or was just left alone because nobody wanted anything to do with him. I have to admit, he did smell awful. You could be driving in a car and pass him on the road and smell him, with the windows up. Maybe for him it was some kind of people repellent. If it was, it worked. We are almost finishing up with chapter 4 of Dolly, My Life and Other Unfinished Business. And it is raining, so I'm trying to speak a little louder so you can hear me. I am on the back porch, so if it's too loud, the rain, I apologize. People tend to fear what they do not know, and what they fear they dislike. All kinds of rumors circulated over the hills about the old man. He had a bunch of old mangy dogs, and some said he had sex with them. Oh, oof. While there was no doubt he slept with them, it is not likely the relationship was actually consummated. More likely, he was a hunter. He would almost have to have enough to eat. He didn't farm much, and he never went to town. There was one time when he sent away for the mail order bride. I suppose that in itself shows that he didn't really want to be alone. If only he had sent away for a case of soap at the same time. Anyway, after a while, this woman came to live with him. She was large and unsightly, but I can still imagine the shock she was in store for. The woman had a grown daughter, and right away rumors started to fly that the old man did them both. This chapter is up and down, went from Christmas to makeup tutorials to baby death, and now to potentially, marrying somebody and then doing your own daughter, even if the daughter came from another marriage. Goodness, Dolly Parton. Goodness. Again, riveting book. We can't figure out. It's so good. Oh, God, I don't even have words. I'm going to keep reading her words. Okay. It seems like they stayed for about 8 or 9 months and then they disappeared. Naturally, the rumor mill kicked into high gear. Of course, the old man had killed them. The only disagreement among the rumor mongers was as to whether or not he had fed them to the dogs or eaten them himself. This is actually not too far removed from the stories of Raw Head Bloody Bones and other mountain tales of horror, which, if you didn't listen, 2 chapters ago, Dolly Parton talked about that story being what her mother would tell her and her siblings in order to keep them in bed at night, not get out of their bed. Raw Head Bloody Bones. Okay, people will create monsters. I suppose if everybody in the world looked exactly alike except for one person who had brown eyes instead of blue, that brown-eyed man would be the devil incarnate. Most likely, he put his mail-order bride back in the mailbox along with her daughter. There were times when I had to walk by Sawdust's house to get to church or to visit relatives. I had heard all the stories, and at first I avoided him like everybody else. He could be frightening looking. His long hair and beard were matted, and his teeth were not pretty. Either one of them. Neither one of them. He only had 2, it sounds like. Then one day as I made my way down the hill, I heard some pretty good banjo picking. As I stepped past a grove of trees and into the clearing, I could see that the music was being played by old Sawdust himself. Suddenly, the old man looked completely different to me. I believed there is a bond that unites all musicians, and somehow I felt an instant kinship with this unlikely person. The face could have uglied a squirrel to death at 40 paces, but the foot was stomping out a rhythm, and that was good enough for me. Every day after that, I would stop to listen and watch him play. Naturally, I would start in singing. He would break into something I knew like Shady Grove, and I would sing and clap or beat out the rhythm on the porch rail. I was having a good time, and Sawdust loved it too. More and more, he would be out on the porch, and when he knew it was time for me to come by, of course, I was always hoping to be upwind of him. Whew. But the stories he told fascinated me so much I would have stood to smell anyway. He had been in the war, but most important to me, he had been places. He had been on ships and crossed oceans, seen foreign countries. He taught me songs and chords on the banjo, and he taught me it was all right to be different. Well, that is the end of chapter 4 from our continuing saga of Dolly, My Life, and Other Unfinished Business. Again, it's weird that it's all backwards. I will flip it so you can see the title correctly. My Life and Other Unfinished Business. Okay, so with same schedule, we'll be back every other day. So we'll be back on Monday, if today is Saturday. So today is Saturday. Yeah, so we'll be back Monday, 10 a.m. Hawaii time, 1 p.m. Pacific, and 4 p.m. Eastern time. And again, as always, all the other time zones, you got to figure out that time because I don't got that time of math. Also, we did mention we are putting these on YouTube. The last 4 chapters, including today, will all go up on a YouTube page so you can listen to them whenever you want, or just pass them on, or just be entertained. And this chapter will stay live on Instagram for the next 24 hours. Thanks. Have a good day, everybody.